bad luck to spill salt? And how does throwing salt over your shoulder help? What is the deal with the Easter Bunny? Bunnies don't lay eggs. Who was Bloody Mary? Why is the number 13 unlucky? Do aliens exist? What really happened in Roswell 1947? Does Avril Lavigne really have a clone named Melissa?
Hello, my little strangelings, and welcome to Folklore Friday. How's the pandemic treating you? Stressed? Frustrated? Worried? Anxious? Bored? Well, you're not alone. Well, here's a little escape from that. On this channel, I discuss the world's folklore, myth, legends, and superstitions. I also look at how lore is used in entertainment.
Okay, but what does that mean?
It means that my channel is half history, the history of folklore, and everything underneath that umbrella, which is a lot. And half reviews of television and film. Doesn't TV just sound lazy? To start off, let's look at what the word folklore really means. By definition, folklore is the traditional beliefs, customs, and stories of a community passed through the generations by word of mouth. Beliefs could be anything ranging from a 4-leaf clover is good luck, or the number 13 is a bad luck. Customs, for example, could include wedding traditions, the bouquet toss, exchanging rings, the saying something old, something blue, something borrowed, and something blue. Wait, did I get that right? Holidays, decorating a Christmas tree, hanging stockings, exchanging gifts, taking your kids to sit on the knee of an old fat man. You know, the usual. Stories, you've got folktales, you've got fairy tales, you have stories and lore about vampires, witches, zombies, the boogeyman. The second definition is a body of popular myth and beliefs relating to a particular place, activity, or group of people. For example, Hollywood folklore.
Did you hear about Marilyn Manson's surgery? Or Avril Lavigne's clone?
It can also be specific places. Scotland has the Loch Ness Monster. We have Roswell and Area 51. It could also be a school or community. The campus ghost. Don't go in that corridor, it's haunted.
You know what I heard? The guy that played the cigarette smoking man, he lives down the road.
That was literally a story from when I was growing up. It's possible. We live close to Canada, and it was filmed in Vancouver, BC. It could also include activities or games. Bloody Mary, or light as a feather, stiff as a board. Or a group, anything from a religion to a club, or a job, or a conspiracy.
Did you hear about such and such sorority? You'll never guess what they do during Pledge Week.
Folklore is all around you, in phrases and practices. It is such a broad topic if you really think about it. Folklore serves a purpose. Not only does it give a way to strengthen communities and build culture, it also can give you a community connection. Okay, so let's say you live in the US, which is probably my target audience. You can meet someone that grew up on the other side of the country. Different religion, different race, different beliefs and culture altogether. But let's say you've heard some similar urban legends. Now you have an instant community connection. Although your lives could be very different, that is something that you share in common. It's not just the idea that, ghost stories are fun to tell. It's this way to connect with people. And folktales, even fairy tales, can also strengthen the ideals of a community and culture. I know that there's a lot of backlash for fairy tales right now. A lot of talk of maybe we should just get rid of them altogether. No, that's like getting rid of history and burning books. Bad, bad, bad. Quick editor's note here. I don't want to make any enemies because there are some big names connected to this topic. Let me clarify. I don't have a problem with parents deciding what movies they want to show or what books they want to read in their home. That's fine. But I do have a problem with people saying that we need to remove fairy tales and stories from libraries and schools. I appreciate the opportunity for kids when they're a little bit older to read this type of story in school and talk about it, talk about the implications, talk about the themes. I think opportunities like that to analyze such stories when they're a little bit older and you can talk about how the fact they were written hundreds of years ago are actually really beneficial. My point is, fairy tales and folk tales are a representation of that time and culture. Now we have different values. Women have rights, for one, and more options than they did, say, back in and the princess got married and lived happily ever after. Yes, because that is a representation of that particular culture. And what you have to remember is some of those stories were very radical for the time they were written. What you have to do with the history of folklore is separate yourself from it. You have to look at it from the perspective of the people that lived during that time period. You have to take yourself and separate your modern perspective to understand what those stories meant, and more so the lives of the people that lived during the time that they were written and shared. And when you do that, you will discover that there's these itty bitty baby steps all throughout history. And some of these stories highlight that if you look closely. And I personally think that folklore is underrated. Sometimes when people hear about superstitions or the fact that people believed in vampires way back when, they think,
well, that's just stupid.
But what you're missing is the reasons why. Why did these people have these superstitions, and why did they believe these things? So sometimes when I look at folklore, especially that kind, superstitions or supernatural, there is usually a story of the people that believed those things. We live in a time now where we can get X-rays, we can look up almost anything on WebMD. Doesn't mean it's right, but we can look at it. We have access to information, anything from scientific information and medical knowledge. If you think about it, in the past, they bled people because they thought it was helpful. For thousands of years, they were just kind of guessing. There's a lot that went into just misunderstanding how our bodies work, especially how a body decays. A natural process during decay is rigor mortis, where the body will get stiff and then it will relax. So let's say you didn't know that and you heard a ruckus in the graveyard in a coffin. And then you pop it open and Grandpa looks like he moved. It's a very easy leap to make to see why they thought, oh my God, he's coming back to life. They just didn't know any better. So when I look at the history of folklore, I'm more so looking at the people that believed these things and why. Not so much, did vampires exist because it's so sexy? Which brings me to my next point, entertainment. Why are these things fascinating? Why do we keep telling stories with supernatural elements? How many vampire movies and shows do we need, really? Or witches or werewolves? I'll tell you, the answer is always more werewolves. Because I'm fairly certain werewolf is my spirit animal. Why are these storylines fascinating to us? What can we explore in these stories that we can't in others? So if this sounds like your jam, then join me as I do a deep dive into past and present folklore. And I look into the uses of lore in TV and film. If you like more on this topic, check out my podcasts, Folklore Friday. Look for this image. I post a new episode on the podcast every other Friday. And as far as videos is concerned, I'm still figuring it out. I can't promise it will be every other Friday, but I'm gonna try. Because due to the pandemic and me being on standby, I've got nothing but time. As I sign off, let me ask you, what do you want to learn about? Is there anything that you've had questions about or that you want to know? Good luck charms, traditions, anything. Let me know in the comments, or you can message me on my Instagram account at Folklore Friday. Thanks for joining me, my little strangelings. Scare you later. How does throwing salt over your... Ever started throwing... For example, one of the... and I personally think that folklore is under...